The bride didn't scream. She didn't argue. She kicked. Her heel dug into the stomach of the pregnant woman who had stumbled into the wedding hall. The crowd gasped, chairs scraped against the marble floor, but before anyone could react, the bride shoved the woman again, sending her crashing to the ground. "Who let this thing in here?" Cassandra Royce shouted, her voice sharp with rage. Her white gown shimmered under the chandelier, but her eyes burned with fury. The pregnant woman groaned, struggling to protect her belly. But Cassandra wasn't done. She leaned down, grabbed a fistful of the woman's hair, and raised her hand to strike again. "Trash like you has no place in my wedding," she spat. The groom, Damien Holt, froze at the altar. His jaw tightened, his eyes wide, but not a word escaped him. A billionaire feared in boardrooms across the country, and yet here he stood, powerless in front of the chaos. And then, the woman on the ground lifted her bruised face. Tears streaked her cheeks, but her voice was steady, trembling with fury. "Hit me all you want, beat me until I bleed," she gasped. But today, her hand pressed firmly against her swollen belly, "today I will expose you. All your secrets. This wedding ends now." The hall went silent. The orchestra stopped mid-note. Every guest stared, breath held, waiting. Damien's heart slammed against his chest. He knew that voice. He knew that face. And if she spoke the truth here, if she dared to reveal what bound them together, his empire, his reputation, even his future, would all be destroyed in one night. But what could she possibly know? What secret could she be carrying that was powerful enough to destroy empires and bring billionaires to their knees? Because sometimes, it's not the rich who hold the power. It's the broken, the forgotten, the ones with nothing left to lose. The truth she came to reveal would change everything. And when it comes out, no one, not even the bride, will escape its fire. If you want to know what happens next, don't just watch, join the story. Subscribe to Echoes of Ancient, and be here when the truth finally comes to light, because the storm has only just begun. That Monday morning was supposed to define Damien Holt's entire future. One signature, one deal, would lock down billions in investment, secure his empire, and crush his rivals once and for all. His reputation as the youngest billionaire in the city rested on this moment. The sun was sharp, but Damien's mind was sharper. He drove his black sedan through the city streets like a man on a mission, his suit crisp, his confidence untouchable. Just before the highway, he stopped briefly to collect a brown envelope, confidential documents that carried the weight of his future. Sliding the envelope inside his jacket, he stepped back toward his car. Then it happened. A thunderous honk. A massive truck roared past, splashing a tidal wave of muddy water across him. His perfectly pressed suit was drenched, his white shirt ruined, his face spattered with filth. "Damn it," Damien muttered under his breath, jaw tightening. If he showed up at the meeting like this, no one would take him seriously. The deal would slip right into his rival's hands. Frustrated, he scanned the street. And that was when he saw it, a small wooden kiosk tucked at the corner of the road. Its paint was faded, the roof rusted from years of struggle. Inside stood a young woman, staring at him in surprise. Her name was Elena Marquez. She had been struggling for weeks, her little roadside laundry stall barely making enough to survive. But when she saw the mud-soaked billionaire glaring at his ruined suit, she stepped forward without hesitation. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I can help you." Damien blinked, caught off guard. He wasn't used to strangers offering kindness, especially not someone so ordinary, so unpolished, so sincere. Elena's hands worked quickly, her movements steady despite the faint stiffness in her arm, an arm that had never fully healed after a childhood illness. She scrubbed and pressed, ignoring the pain, determined to fix what she could. Within minutes, Damien's suit looked presentable again. Not perfect, but enough to face a boardroom. For the first time in years, Damien felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Gratitude. And beneath it, curiosity. That Monday morning, drenched in mud on the side of the road, was the moment their worlds collided. A billionaire built on steel and ambition. A poor girl who had nothing but her quiet strength. Neither of them knew that this simple act of kindness would unravel secrets powerful enough to shatter a wedding before it even began. Damien Holt should have forgotten her. She was just a roadside girl, a stranger who happened to save his morning. By all logic, he had no reason to ever think of her again. But he couldn't. That night, as he sat in his penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline, Damien found his mind drifting back to the warmth of freshly pressed fabric, and the quiet strength in Elena's eyes. The world he lived in was filled with people who wanted something from him, his money, his power, his name. But she hadn't asked for anything. Not a cent. The next week he found himself driving the same route. Coincidence, he told himself as his black sedan slowed near the crooked kiosk. Elena was there, folding shirts into neat piles. When she noticed him, she looked almost startled. Then she smiled, not the polished kind of smile he saw at galas and business meetings, but one that was small, genuine, unpracticed. "You again?" she teased lightly. Damien cleared his throat. I had another suit that needed work." He handed her the garment, though in truth there was nothing wrong with it. He just wanted an excuse to see her. Days turned into weeks and his visits became routine. Sometimes he would sit quietly as she worked, watching how her fingers moved carefully over the fabric despite the stiffness in her arm. Other times they would talk, not about business or wealth but about little things. Her sick mother. The struggles of keeping the kiosk running. The simple meals she cooked to stretch every coin. Each conversation chipped away at Damien's walls. With Elena he wasn't the ruthless billionaire. He was just a man. One evening, rain hammered against the city streets. Damien pulled up to the kiosk to find Elena hastily covering her stall with plastic sheets. Without thinking, he stepped out into the downpour and helped her secure the roof. They were both drenched, laughing at the absurdity, and for a fleeting second the cold didn't matter. That night, as she handed him his suit, their eyes lingered longer than before. The silence between them was charged, fragile. "Why are you always so kind to me?" Damien asked quietly. Elena lowered her gaze. "Because everyone deserves someone who doesn't expect anything in return." Those words carved deep into him. And though neither said it out loud, both knew that something dangerous had begun to grow, something that would not go unnoticed and would not be forgiven. The Holt mansion was heavy that night, its silence louder than thunder. Damien sat across the long dining table, the weight of his parents' eyes pressing down on him like chains. His father, Charles Holt, leaned forward, voice stern but steady. "You built businesses, yes. You've made a name for yourself. But an empire isn't just money, Damien. It's legacy. And legacy is preserved through the right marriage." Damien's chest tightened. He already knew what was coming. His mother, Evelyn, elegant and cold, folded her arms. "Cassandra Royce," she said, her tone sharp, final. "She's the only logical choice. That union will strengthen both families and keep our name untouchable." Damien pushed back in his chair, shaking his head. "Cassandra? You can't be serious. She doesn't care about me. She only cares about the Holt name. I already have someone Enough." Charles's voice boomed across the room, shaking the silverware. "This is not about who you care for. Feelings don't secure empires." The Holt mansion was still echoing with his father's commands when Damien shut himself in his study, anger burning in his chest. Cassandra Royce. Legacy. Bloodlines. It was always the same script. His parents had given him everything, except freedom. But while Damien fought battles in silence, Elena's world was crumbling in plain sight. Her kiosk, the little wooden stall that had been her lifeline, was gone. One morning the government trucks rolled in like a storm. Officials shouted orders, tearing down the roadside stalls without warning, smashing wood and tin into rubble. Elena begged, pleaded, tried to gather her things, but it was useless. Everything she had built with her trembling hands was reduced to dust in minutes. By the time Damien found her, she was sitting on the broken boards, her face streaked with tears. "They destroyed it," she whispered hoarsely. "Everything I had, they took it away." Damien's chest tightened. He had seen her strong, calm, resilient even in pain, but this was different. This was despair. He crouched beside her, his hand brushing against hers. "You won't face this alone," he said firmly. "Pack your things. You're coming with me." That evening, Elena stepped into the Holt mansion for the first time. She didn't belong there. Her simple clothes and tired eyes stood in sharp contrast to the marble floors and glittering chandeliers. She walked quietly, carefully, as though afraid her very presence would leave stains on the polished tiles. In the days that followed, she made herself small in the grand house. She cooked simple meals, folded laundry, and kept her head down, always trying to prove she wasn't a burden. To Damien, her presence was comfort. To her, it was survival. But not everyone welcomed her. From the moment Cassandra Royce heard whispers that a nobody was living under Damien's roof, her fury began to boil. A woman like Elena was an insult, a threat to everything Cassandra believed belonged to her. And in that grand mansion, with his parents plotting legacy and Cassandra sharpening her claws, Damien Holt had no idea that his decision to take Elena in had lit the fuse for a war that would soon explode. Long before Damien Holt built his empire, his future had already been written for him. When he was still a boy, his father, Charles Holt, made a promise. At an oak table filled with contracts and expensive wine, he clasped hands with Victor Royce, Cassandra's father. "Our children will marry," Charles declared, sealing the unspoken pact. "Holt and Royce, together we'll rule the future." On paper, it was a powerful alliance, two wealthy dynasties tied by blood, their influence stretching across industries and politics. To the outside world, it looked unshakable. But what Charles never knew was that Victor Royce's empire had already collapsed. His company was buried in debt, his accounts hollowed out, his name held up only by reputation and pride. Behind the expensive suits and smooth words was a desperate man clinging to survival. Victor had played his cards well. He hid the bankruptcy, faked the wealth, and leaned on the illusion of power. To secure his family's future, he dangled his daughter, Cassandra, as the perfect jewel. If she married into the Holt empire, everything he lost would be restored. And so Cassandra was raised not just as a daughter, but as a weapon. Groomed in etiquette, schooled in charm, taught how to smile sweetly while calculating every move, her entire life was shaped for one goal: become Mrs. Holt. Years later, when Damien's parents called him into the grand dining hall and spoke of legacy and duty, they weren't just planning a wedding. They were binding him to a deal forged in deception. "You must marry Cassandra," Charles told him that night, voice like steel. "It's the best path for this family. The Holts and the Royces together will remain untouchable." Damien clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to scream that they didn't know Cassandra like he did, that she wasn't what they thought she was. But deep down he also knew the truth. This wasn't about Cassandra at all. It was about his father's pride. It was about a promise made years ago over a glass of wine and a handshake. A promise he was now expected to pay for with his future. Weeks passed in the Holt mansion, and Elena moved quietly, always trying to make herself invisible. She cooked when she could, washed when no one asked, and tried to keep out of Cassandra's line of sight. But something was changing. At first it was fatigue, then the nausea, then the constant ache in her body. Alone in her small room, Elena pressed a trembling hand against her stomach. A test confirmed what she already feared. She was carrying Damien's child. Memories of that night flashed back. The rain hammering on the car roof, the way their words had fallen silent, the pull between them too strong to fight. It had only been once. A moment stolen in weakness and tenderness. But now it lived inside her. Elena sat on the floor, tears streaming down her face. She whispered into the empty room, "I'm pregnant." The words felt heavy, dangerous. What would Damien say? What would Cassandra do if she found out? What about his parents, who already despised her? For days, Elena hid the truth, her loose clothes concealing the smallest changes. She told herself she could keep it secret until she figured out what to do. But secrets never stayed buried in the Holt mansion. One night, Cassandra caught her holding her stomach, saw the fear in her eyes, and suspicion sparked like fire. And from that moment, Cassandra knew, this woman wasn't just a distraction. She was a threat. Cassandra Royce had always been sharp, but when she finally discovered Elena's secret, her fury burned hotter than fire. It happened one evening after dinner. Elena thought she was alone in the mansion kitchen, her hands resting protectively against her stomach as she leaned against the counter. The faint swell beneath her dress betrayed her. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I have to keep you safe." Cassandra's reflection appeared in the glass behind her. Well, she drawled, stepping into the light. "So this is the little secret you've been hiding." Elena froze. Her heart pounded as Cassandra's eyes dropped to her belly, then back up, blazing with contempt. It's his, isn't it? Cassandra's lips curled into a bitter smile. Damien's. Elena said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. Cassandra's laugh was sharp and cruel. Do you know what you've done? If Damien finds out, everything I've worked for, everything my family needs, will be ruined. You think this child gives you power? No. It makes you disposable. From that night on, Cassandra's cruelty had no limits. She mocked Elena at every opportunity, forcing her to do humiliating chores. She slipped spiteful remarks at the table, disguised as jokes, each one cutting deeper. But worse still were the nights when Cassandra's plotting grew darker. One evening, long after everyone had gone to bed, she crept into the kitchen with a small vial of black liquid. She unscrewed the cap, poured a few drops into the food Elena had cooked earlier, and stirred slowly, her smile wicked. The next morning, Elena woke with a heaviness in her stomach that went beyond morning sickness. Pain ripped through her body, her skin clammy with sweat. She clutched her side, gasping, "Something's wrong?" Cassandra watched from the doorway, her expression calm, almost satisfied. But what she hadn't counted on was Damien's sudden arrival that morning. He found Elena pale and trembling, barely able to stand. His heart dropped as he rushed to her side, scooping her into his arms. "Stay with me," he pleaded as he carried her out. "Don't you dare leave me." And from that moment, Cassandra knew for certain. Damien didn't just care about Elena. He loved her. Which meant Cassandra had to destroy her completely. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Damien's car tore through the city streets, horns blaring as he pushed the engine beyond its limits. Elena's head rested against his chest, her skin cold, her breath shallow. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't close your eyes. Please, Elena, please." By the time they arrived, nurses rushed forward, lifting her onto a stretcher. Damien followed, his hands shaking, his heart pounding with terror he had never known. Deals, boardrooms, rivals, none of it mattered now. Only her. Hours crawled by in the sterile waiting room. Damien paced the floor, his tie pulled loose, his hair damp with sweat. He hadn't prayed in years, but tonight his lips moved in desperate silence. Then Cassandra appeared. Her heels clicked softly against the tiles, her expression painted with concern. "Damien," she said gently, touching his arm, "you have to be strong. She'll want you to be fine." But Damien barely looked at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the double doors at the end of the corridor. Inside, Elena fought. Pain racked her body, her vision fading in and out. She thought of her mother still waiting at home, frail and sick. She thought of Damien, the one man who had ever looked at her with something like love. And she thought of the tiny life inside her, too precious, too fragile. The doors swung open at last. The doctor stepped out, his face grim, his eyes downcast. Damien rushed forward. "Tell me she's okay. Please, tell me she's okay." The doctor sighed, pulling off his glasses. "I'm sorry, Mr. Holt, she didn't make it. The world shattered." Damien staggered back, clutching his chest, his knees almost buckling. No, that's not true. Let me see her. Let me see her, please." But the doctor only shook his head. "Her body has already been sent to her family." Damien dropped into the nearest chair, his face buried in his hands, a broken sound escaping his throat. Cassandra knelt beside him, her voice soft, almost soothing. "You'll get through this," she whispered. "You still have me." But as she wrapped her arms around him, Cassandra's eyes glinted. Behind the mask of pity was something darker, satisfaction. Because as far as Damien knew, Elena Marquez was gone. The Holt mansion had never felt so empty. Damien sat alone in the vast living room, the fire dying to embers, the silence suffocating. The world outside still saw him as the unshakable billionaire, but inside he was hollow. Every corner of the house whispered of her. Elena's soft laugh when she set a meal on the table. The quiet way she hummed while folding his shirts. The look in her eyes the night rain trapped them together, when walls finally crumbled and love slipped through. Now all of it was gone. Damien pressed his hands to his face, his chest aching. He had lost deals before. He had lost friends, allies, even family in business wars. But this was a different kind of loss. He whispered her name into the silence, his voice breaking. Elena. Upstairs, Cassandra watched him from the shadows of the hallway. Her lips curved into a faint, practiced smile as she adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist. Every tear he shed only deepened her conviction. Soon, she thought. Soon he'll have no one but me. But the truth was not what Damien believed. In a dimly lit room at the edge of the city, Elena stirred awake. Her body was weak, her breathing shallow, but she was alive. The doctor stood at her bedside, his expression torn. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "By rights, I was paid to end your life." Elena's eyes widened in horror. He sighed, rubbing his face. "Cassandra offered me more money than I've ever seen. I was supposed to make sure you never walked out of that hospital again. But when I saw you," he shook his head, "I couldn't do it. I won't have your blood, or your child's, on my hands." Elena clutched her stomach, her heart pounding with both fear and relief. "My baby?" The doctor hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Still alive. Fragile but alive. But listen to me, if they find out you're breathing, Cassandra will finish what she started. And Damien, he believes you're dead. You can't go back. Not yet." Tears streamed down Elena's cheeks. She thought of her mother, frail and sick, waiting for her return. She thought of Damien, broken and grieving, not knowing she was still here. The doctor leaned closer. "If you value your life, disappear. Stay hidden until you're strong enough to fight back. Only then can you return." That night, Elena slipped into the darkness with nothing but her unborn child and the thin thread of hope that one day truth would come to light. Days blurred into nights for Damien Holt. He stopped going to the office, ignored calls, ignored contracts worth millions. The empire he had built meant nothing when the only person who gave it warmth was gone. Everywhere he turned, he saw her. The faint scent of soap lingering on a towel she had folded. The way his suits were still neatly pressed, as if waiting for her hands to deliver them. The memory of her whispering, "Don't worry, I'll help you." He drowned himself in whiskey, staring out at the city lights he once ruled, now nothing more than a cruel reminder that power could not save the only woman he truly loved. Cassandra Royce watched him closely. She played the role of the comforter, sitting by his side in silence, pouring his drink, brushing her hand against his shoulder. To outsiders, she looked like the perfect fiancée, steady and patient in his grief. But behind closed doors, her words were sharp, deliberate. "You can't live like this forever, Damien," she murmured one evening. "Elena is gone. You still have a life to build, with me. It's what your parents wanted. It's what's best for the family." Her timing was perfect, always pressing when he was weakest, always tightening the noose of expectation. The Holt-Royce wedding was pushed forward quietly, and Damien, too broken to resist, let the tide pull him along. Far from the marble halls of the Holt mansion, Elena Marquez clutched her belly in the small dim room she now called home. The doctor had arranged her escape, slipping her out of the hospital under cover of night. She had nothing, no money, no friends to turn to, only the fragile life growing inside her. Every day was a battle. Her body ached, her strength fading, but she forced herself to keep going. She cooked simple meals with scraps, whispered lullabies to the unborn child, and prayed for the strength to live one more day. At night she thought of Damien. Of his voice, his arms carrying her, the panic in his eyes as he begged her to hold on. Did he mourn her? Did he know she still breathed? But then she remembered Cassandra's face, the venom in her smile, the promise in her eyes. If Cassandra ever learned she was alive, Elena knew the woman would stop at nothing. So she stayed silent. She stayed hidden. Because one day she would return, not as a victim but as the truth Cassandra could never bury. The rain poured hard that night, beating against the small tin roof where Elena hid. Her hands trembled as she finished telling the doctor her story, the poisoning, the betrayal, the child growing inside her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he poured himself a drink, his hand shaking slightly. His eyes, heavy with something more than pity, met hers. "You think you know what these families are," he said quietly. "But you don't. Damien doesn't. Cassandra doesn't. Not even their parents' closest allies understand the truth." Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" The doctor leaned closer, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves might be listening. "There are things I've seen, things I've been forced to bury. The Holt and Royce alliance wasn't built on love or even business. it was built on lies. On secrets so dark that if they ever came out, both families would burn. Elena's pulse quickened. What kind of secrets? He hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then, at last, he whispered something into her ear. Elena's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat, one hand flying to her mouth as if to stop a scream. "No," she whispered. That can't be true." The doctor's gaze was grave. "It is. And now you carry the one weapon that could bring them all down. But if you speak it aloud, you will never know peace again." Elena sat frozen, her heart pounding, the weight of what she had just heard pressing down on her chest. She thought she had only come to stop a wedding. Now she realized she carried the power to destroy an empire. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky, as if the heavens themselves were warning her of the storm to come. Elena thought she only carried Damien's child, but that night, the doctor whispered a truth so dark it could tear both families to the ground. What did he tell her? And when the secret finally comes out, who will survive the fallout? The storm has only begun. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Part 2 is coming. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel at Echoes of Ancient. Every single subscriber helps me keep these stories alive.